This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that I use for all of my website needs. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're well wherever you are in the world. Now this is a bit of a longer video, and this is the recording that was made at my talk at the Photography and Video Show just last weekend. It's a talk that I did on the Fujifilm Stage, and it's essentially a 14-year retrospective. So I've been shooting with Fujifilm for about 14 years. And I talk about weddings, street photography, GFX portraits, and basically everything in between. There's some questions and answers at the end also, if you want to hang around for that. Now, I've done my absolute best to correct the audio, but you have to bear with me because this was a very large auditorium, lots of people in the audience and lots of background noise. Hopefully it works out okay. Enjoy.
Hello again. Some familiar faces from this morning, others less so. Thanks for coming along to this talk on the Fujifilm Stage. You'll have noticed that the departure screen to the left is not functional. Departure screen to the right is where you should cast your eyes, which is good because I don't like it when people look at me anyway. So we're going to spend a little bit of time going through my 14-year history with Fujifilm cameras. All right. So 14 years sounds like quite a long time, but it actually happens that I think on the 5th of March was the anniversary of the Fujifilm X100. And that's what first got me into the Fujifilm system. Now I will be showing some wedding pictures, but quite a lot of personal stuff, some sports stuff as well. Essentially everything over the ages. All right. For those of you that don't know me, I am a documentary photographer. Used to specialize in weddings, but I've recently retired from weddings after 800. 700 of which were shot entirely on Fujifilm equipment. All right. So it's perfectly capable of doing all of this stuff. And you'll see a lovely quote there from Don McCullum. And it says, "Photography for me is not looking, it's feeling. If you can't feel what you're looking at, then you're never going to get others to feel anything when they look at your pictures." And that's always been very, very important to me. In fact, I have it above my editing suite in the studio. And whenever I've been shooting weddings and latterly families and personal work and all of the stuff in between, that is important to me. So apart from some of the studio portraits I'll show you a little bit later, all of my work is candid, 100% candid, documentary. Almost all of it, apart from the studio work, is also shot with natural light or available light only. All right, I love that ability. So 2011, up until then, I had been a professional photographer for a few years. And I made that change in 2011 to Fujifilm cameras, purely not necessarily because I wanted to, but the X100 came along and it just grabbed my attention. And I thought, okay. Now I was using bigger DSLRs at the time. They were fine, there was no problem with them, but back in the day, DSLRs, if you remember, were big and heavy and clunky. No, not so much the case these days. But this X100 came along and it was smaller, it was lighter, it was more affordable. And what subsequently happened with Fujifilm is they were updated very regularly. So you often got newer features as you come along. And the other thing that I found with my relationship to Fujifilm over the years is that they are definitely made for photographers, okay? So the people behind the screens here and the people in Japan and everything, they are photographers. They love photography and they build their cameras with feedback from the likes of people like me and others in order to enable photographers to have beautiful cameras that work, do the job. But crucially, more enjoyable. That was the important thing. And, you know, I kind of had those DSLRs and decided that they would be with me on a wedding day and then nothing, they would just sit in the cupboard. You know, they were perfectly good at what they did. But then the X100 comes, the X Pro 1, and I'm picking the camera up. I'm using it all of the time. I'm enjoying it. It's a beautiful thing to use. All right. So like I said, back on the 5th of March, 2011, exactly 14 years ago, give or take 36 hours or so, the X100 Fine Pix came out. Now, it's the only one of the series, the X series, that retained the name Fine Pix. Now, some of you definitely are not old enough to remember the old Fujifilm stuff at airports, and they'd have the Fine Pix branded all over the place. And they used to make these little, they still do, little rugged cameras for beaches, etc. And that was where the market was at that point. But then they invented this FinePix X100, which is a beautiful, beautiful camera. And this is it. This is my FinePix 100. I must remember not to up there. Which is, I still use, believe it or not, after all this time. And the X100 VI, which is the latest edition of that, they like to call it the 6, but I like to call it the VI. It looks basically the same. It's just much more advanced technology. So if you love these kind of little rangefinder cameras, it's a beautiful sister. Now, this is pretty much the first picture I ever took with my new Fujifilm FinePix X100 all that time ago. And you can see there, the metadata says FinePix X100. And that's my little boy and my little girl. And if we fast forward, this is them now. I promised my daughter I wouldn't stay on the screen too long, but it's a little bit bright on there. And this is with the X100 VI. So I have photographed my entire family, my kids growing up, entirely on these X100 cameras. And really what I love about them, these little kind of portable machines, is that it can get me pictures in places that perhaps I would not be brave enough to take pictures with bigger systems. So this is the Cheltenham Race Festival. Now I'm going on Thursday this week. I don't gamble, I don't watch the races. I take pictures of the people losing money. The more they lose, the better the pictures. That's what I've figured out over the years. These two definitely look like they're losing quite a bit of money. These two look like they've just won some money. And I love it. You know, I just love taking this. And every time I go to Cheltenham, I take either my X100 or my X70 with me. And they do a bag check. You're not allowed to take cameras into Cheltenham. But they see the X100 or they see X70 and they're like, oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. What's that little thing? In fact, one guy once said to me, why don't you just use your phone? Up here for thinking, fella. And you know, you can just really, really get in the moment, and it's a beautiful system. And that's the X100 has moved from that very first edition some 14 years ago, and we're still creating them now. Fujifilm is still creating them. New edition, obviously, much faster, bigger sensor, beautiful film simulations, and just a joy to use. So I made my career shooting weddings, made my money from shooting weddings, or some of my money shooting weddings. And I have shot, and it's fair to say, circa 700 weddings just on Fujifilm equipment. So there was no crossover. There was no real crossover when I first started. I ditched my DSLRs. I went to MPB and I passed all of my DSLRs to them, and I got the X Pro 1 system that just been launched with the 3 little launch lenses. And so some of the pictures, some of my favorite pictures from over the years, as you know, as I said, documentary photographer, so I don't really like doing group shots or portraits or anything like that at weddings. So I used to have this one nice and big on my studio wall. So when the clients would say, what about the group shots? I'd just say, yeah, that's one. That's what everybody thinks about group shots. And of course, I'm only joking, but you know, I loved all of that beautiful, candid nature of things. This picture, what the vicar saw. So again, a long time ago now, this was shot on an X Pro 2 with the 60mm macro lens, right? 60mm macro lens is a beautiful lens, very slow to focus, it's very old, but a lovely lens. Subsequently to this picture, I figured out that that's the vicar's wife, so it was all okay. That's fine. The vicar was presiding over the ceremony.
I just want to talk about the sponsor of today's episode, Squarespace. And I've used Squarespace for a very long time now, and you can use it too. You can start a completely personalized website with the new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. You can even sell your products and services with an online store, just like I do. Whether you sell physical goods, digital content, prints, or services, Squarespace has the tools you need to start selling online. You can even add appointments to your Squarespace website and start accepting clients if you are doing some kind of scheduling. Squarespace really is the system that I would recommend to any photographer. Go to squarespace.com/Kevin Mullins for 10% off your first website or domain hosting.
Back to the X100. This is also one of my favorite pictures of all times of a wedding. And the reason for that is this sums up weddings for me. And I've been to a lot of weddings. I've seen a lot of grumpy men who would rather be at the cricket, and a lot of lovely ladies who haven't sharing champagne because they haven't seen each other for a very long time. And obviously vice versa as well. But this picture is, just kind of, it epitomizes everything I like about using the mirrorless systems. Natural light, just looking for moments, standing in the middle of the room, just looking for things that are happening. And of course, I jest about this particular picture itself, but it just brings everything together. Now, a lot of people over the years have said to me, well, that mirror in the corner, it would have been nice if there was something interesting happening there. And, I'm not here to tell you not to do these things, but I wouldn't Photoshop something into that mirror. And obviously that moment is only happening at that time. Nothing's actually passing through. All right. The real beauty, I feel, of using the Fujifilm system for me is the electronic viewfinders. Being able to see in black and white has changed the world for me. And I changed my viewfinder to be black and white probably, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago. So you can, with Fujifilm cameras, you can see in black and white, but record raw, okay? And if you do that, you see the shadows and the highlights so much clearer. This picture has been edited slightly, but for all purposes, that's what I'm seeing through the viewfinder itself. That's exactly what's happening for you. Now, of course, you have to remember that if you want to edit later for color, you need to be shooting raw. Be a bit careful about that. But if not, if you're just looking to edit directly and you're happy with that raw file, seeing this beautiful light is amazing. So the way that I typically shoot stuff is spot metering mode, black and white on my viewfinder, and in a very lot of occasions, I would put the camera in fully automatic mode. So if you use Fujifilm cameras at the moment, that's everything on A, auto aperture, auto ISO, auto shutter speed. It's important, obviously, to understand the exposure triangle, but when you're seeing the exposure through the viewfinder, your main responsibility is seeing the moments, seeing the pictures, observation, anticipation. And I often say to my students that, it's not about being a photographer. Anybody can be a photographer. Anybody can press the buttons on the camera. Anybody can understand aperture, all of that stuff. But only you can see what you see. And to be a successful photographer, firstly, you need to be a good observer of moments and seeing things and understanding the light in the show. So here's another one from a wedding a few years back. This is on a X-T2 with a 23mm lens, f1.4 lens. And again, very similar thing, I'm looking for different angles, I'm looking for different environments, I'm looking for different perspectives that perhaps, I wouldn't normally think about. In this case, the light is flooding in from the left, the bride's left, or in front of the bride, I should say, our left. And I can see that there's this lovely light on the bridesmaid, and she's gone under the veil, spot meter on the face, recompose, perfect, everything's good. So I'm going to show you a photo film. It's what we call photo film in the trade, which is basically photos set to music of a wedding. Now, as I said, I haven't shot a wedding for over a year now, so this is from that period. This was shot on two X-T5s with an 18mm f1.4 lens and a 56mm 1.2. That's it. Just two little cameras. Where we go.
The end of the world has been on my mind. How do we get to the other side? Tell me that you're fine, but I see it in your eyes. You've been thinking about things that make you shake, and your shoulders tremble from the weight of the feeling. It's all coming down. Oh, and I can't make you wait forever. We can make it out together and let all of the past be the past, and we can have all that we've ever wanted. We can change our fate for better, 'cause we've been holding it my side is still here next to me. You and I, we're reflecting light. We'll make it to the other side. People feel the pressure, they've been taking sides, and we promised to be better. I've come to see right the dividing line. The end of the world has been on my mind. Can you blame me? Want the other side? Tell me that they're fine. I see it in their eyes. No, we just can't wait forever. We can make it out together and let all of the past be the past, and we can have all that we've ever wanted. We can change our fate for better, 'cause we've been holding it together. All I know is the one that I want by my side is still here next to me. This time, breaking up the night, like we're made of candlelight. You and I, we're reflecting light. We'll make it to the other side, to the other side. We'll make it to the other side. Can you feel it? The other side. We'll make it.
So it's a really nice way of working. And like I said, that was weddings, and whilst I shot a lot of them, it's time for me to take a little break from that. And Fujifilm, I think, have to be commended really for having a camera for everybody, effectively. So they recently launched the XM5, and I had the original XM1. I don't really know what happened to 2, 3, and 4. There wasn't any 2, 3, and 4, was there? I don't think so. So we've gone from XM1 to XM5. But some of my favorite street photography pictures were taken on the XM1. This one in particular, I was in Japan at the time. And again, you can see that 23mm lens. I put the XF data in the corner, so if you can see it, you can see it. Some of the darker pictures will be easier on. And it's beautiful, you know, you can just get in close, flip the screen down, boom. The XM1 that I had then and the XM5 that come with it afterwards are the most pocketable little cameras that are interchangeable that Fujifilm do. I think they're absolutely fantastic cameras. This picture, believe it or not, as I was formulating my fledgling documentary wedding photography career, won me Landscape Photographer of the Year. This is about the only landscape picture I've ever taken in my entire life. And I feel like whoever was at the top of the Tokyo Skytree at the time had exactly the same picture on every camera. But I entered it. And that was the XM1 also. And, you know, I think while we're talking about little cameras, the X70, remember, this is a little retrospective of, you can't get the X70 anymore. If you're lucky, you'll get one secondhand. I would absolutely adore Fujifilm to upgrade this camera. It's by far my favorite camera for going out, street photography, pocketability, everything. I mean, it's smaller than my phone. This one here, it looks a little bit scratched and damaged, and that's because I've used it so much. It still works perfectly fine. And the reason why it's got all those scratches at the top is I was using it at a wedding once, and it had a strap on it, camera strap. And I was rushing from the church to the reception. If I remember rightly, there was heavy rain and all kinds of things going on. I got in my car, the strap dangled down, we shut the door, So the camera didn't make it into the car. I drove along to the car park, and then I was like, oh, my dear, pulled the camera back in. Still works fine. It's great. You know, I'm back to Cheltenham with the X70. Just kind of comes with me everywhere. And really, it's just you know, beautiful. And this is shot with this is a JPEG straight out camera from that X70. And all of the Fujifilm cameras have all of these beautiful film simulations. If you shoot RAW, you can edit, obviously. But if you want just straight out of the camera loveliness, you have some amazing film simulations here. So we talked about the X100, we talked about the little cameras, we've seen a little bit of wedding stuff. But really where it all changed for me was the X Pro 1, when that came out. So I ended up with an X Pro 1 purely by chance. I was writing a business column for Professional Photographer magazine at the time. And they said, we know you don't do the reviews, but would you like to review this camera? I said, yeah, of course. So they gave it to me, I reviewed it. And as I said at the beginning of this talk, I then swapped everything out, MPB, everything out for the X Pro 1. This is pretty much the first picture that I ever took of the on the X Pro 1. And that's using the 18mm f2 lens, which came out at the time of launch. And X Pro 3, this is Trafalgar Square. I remember what I said about observation and, you know, seeing things, different perspectives. And if you're interested in street photography, my biggest advice to you is behave like a tourist, but look like a photographer, look like an observer. Don't be afraid to be in the same place as all the tourists. Look at what the tourists are taking photos of with their mobile phones, if it's not themselves, and then think, how can I make that look a little bit more interesting? Is it a perspective thing? Is it an angles thing? Is it a composition thing, as we can see here? Keep your eyes out. Now, one of the things that I hear the most are Fujifilm can't focus. And I think, well, then maybe I must have special fairies in my Fujifilm cameras for the last 700 weddings, because it's been absolutely fine. It's not true that Fujifilm can't focus at all. It focuses very quickly. Of course, it's true that some of the older cameras are less quick at focus acquisition. They're very, very good. So this is XT5. This is a recent judo competition. Judo is my sport. Mike, I think, is here, who is probably the best judo photographer in the country. He kindly let me come along with him this particular day. And here we're using the XT5 with a 56mm 1.2 lens. Okay. Now, for those of you that use the 56mm 1.2 lens, you'll know that it's pin sharp, but it's not necessarily known for its speed. But that's a myth. It really is a myth. I see so many times people who use Fujifilm and then switch to another brand and then come back and, you know, flip-flop. And it's because they're just not taking time to get used to seeing how the camera works. Okay, how the autofocus system works specifically. So 56mm 1.2, this will of course have been on continuous focus and high-speed burst. XT5, so this probably would have been on 12 frames per second. Boom. Same thing here, 56mm 1.2 lens sport. Now, obviously, many of you won't know much about judo, but these are quite quick-moving subjects. Okay. Now, I have to warn you about the next frame. It's a little bit gory, only a little bit. This is on a GFX medium format, GFX 100 II, Mark II. I appreciate the EXIF is very small there, so I shall read it out for you. GFX 100 Mark II with the GF 80mm f1.7 RWR. I love that. The people who name the lenses, lovely, very sexy names RWR f1.7. This is at 8,000 ISO at 1/640th of a second. Okay, so I really wanted to, when I was using the GFX 100 Mark II, I really wanted to test it to see how it worked in probably the most extreme kinds of situations it would be used in. A fantastic camera with an amazing opportunity to crop in. This is a crop from the bigger picture. And the same thing here, GFX 100 Mark II. This is at 1.7 again, ISO 10,000. Okay, and let that sink in a little bit. ISO 10,000. And this is ISO 12,800. Okay, now of course I have taken this image into Lightroom and reduced the noise slightly, but not much. And you can tell, I think you will feel like you can always tell when an image has been over ISO desensitized. So GFX 100 Mark II, this is on the 63mm f2.8 lens. So if you are into very high definition images, the GFX range is the one for you to look at. If you're into portability, then the XT, X100, X Pro range are probably there for you. XT5 has an X100 has a 40 megapixel sensor. GFX's, or the GFX 100 range, has a 100 megapixel sensor. Okay. Badminton horse trials with the GFX. Again, so this is on the GFX 100S, 63mm f2.8 at 2.8, ISO 160, so nice low ISO. But again, if you've ever been to the badminton horse trials or ever seen it on TV, these horses move very quickly. So again, I will be using continuous focus, even on a GFX camera, even on a medium format camera. Another one here, GFX 100S. This is on the 110mm lens, f2 lens. There's a 1/2000th of a second. The screens here are a little bit brighter than my screen here, but you can see the definition and the contrast in the images on the GFX system. It is just phenomenal. Similar thing here is on the 110mm lens also, and this one also. Now, my love affair with GFX started right at the beginning with the original one, which was the 50S, the GFX 50S, which they produced first. That was the first one I bought. And as you've seen a theme, okay? Every time I get a new camera, it has to be part of my family. That has to be the first picture. So here's the two little kids again. So I can't remember, the GFX 50S must be 6 years old now, maybe 2017, I'm told. So for 8 years. And, you know, I still look at these pictures and love them, you know, and again, you can see that beautiful depth in the coloring now. And now what's happened is I've taken the GFX into my studio. And I have a studio in Malmesbury. And as Miranda would say, it's such fun. And I love it. I really love it. And it's a complete contradiction and contrast to all of the work that I've ever done. I have a space for a studio, so I build a studio. And, you know, studio work, obviously, as you know, is very different to documentary. It's not candid. It's, you know, it's fully staged. And the way that I like to work with my studio subjects is with a continuous light source. So not with flash, but still resist that temptation. But I use a video light, a continuous video light, and just place it off camera. And it's, you know, it's incredible. So from these types of images, I could then take a very tight headshot crop from that to make that work out as well. This is a 23mm lens, GFX 23mm on the GFX 100 too. And the same here. Now, this particular picture is one of my favorites. A little whippet. GFX 102, GF 80mm f1.7. Now, it's true that a whippet won Crufts yesterday. So if you watch Crufts, which you may not have, they move very quickly. They move even faster than people doing judo. And they move even faster than the horses at Cheltenham, at badminton, I think. In this case, clearly she's not moving very fast. But it's still hard to get a picture like this. So, you know, you do still need a reactionary camera system. And the way that I will have got this picture, the way I got this picture is using the flip out screen, drop it down to waist level, my wife's camera right, taking the fingers, the glance, get the shot, okay? But still with that constant light source. And you can see, so this hasn't been, this has been edited obviously, but I haven't adjusted depth of field or anything like that, like you can do now in Lightroom. So this is actually f1.7 shot on the 80mm lens. So you can see that beautiful depth of field. Now, if you are using a GFX system, it will take time to get used to these very razor sharp depth of fields. But when you get used to them, there's really no going back, especially for this kind of photography. It's just really beautiful. And obviously they will go up to like f22, etc. Slow the shutter speed down, f22, you'll get an easier shot. I like to do this kind of environmental type portraiture with my subjects as well. So instead of necessarily just editing that background in Photoshop, which I did do for some of the frames because we wanted that, but I like to include a little bit of my bulging book collection there on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side also. And yeah, here we go. So this is actually now flipping to the X-T5 in the studio because I wanted to give you a comparison. 56mm lens again, f1.2. That exact same light, just simple light to the right, raised up a little bit. So you don't have to use GFX system, of course, to shoot in the studio. XT system's very capable, especially because they have that bigger sensor. But the opportunities are there for everything these days. And a bit of a closer up one.
During the show, I showed a section on how to edit some of these portraits, which of course did not come out in the recording. So I've recorded it again and I'm going to pop it in here. And just a reminder that with the code TPS25, you can get 20% off my presets and my online wedding photography course. So we're going to be going from images like this, original shot images, to this, and this, to this, which I love this image, to this, and then this one here, we're going to be going to something like this. So you'll notice that there's a little bit of Photoshop work that we'll need to deal with here to extend that background. So we'll show you how to do that as well. And then we'll do from something like this to this. And the first thing we'll ever need to do for all images, all edits within Lightroom, regardless of whether they're going to be black and white or not, is correct exposures if we can, and any kind of cropping. So we'll do that for each image as we go along very quickly. So that's okay. Actually, crop wise, I might just straighten it a little bit. I'm just going to drop the exposure a teeny weeny bit, not too much. And on here as well. Now, all of these images were taken on my Fujifilm X-T5 camera, which is nice and sharp and perfect for these kind of portraits. That's okay. I'm all right with that crop. Now, this one we will be working on a little bit, as I said, but I'm just going to kind of start the process with that there. You see a little bit of clutter over here on the right-hand side. So instead of using Photoshop or AI for that, I'm just going to take that away. And it's gone. And then this one also. So for this one, I think I'm going to try the upright tool, see what that gives us. And yeah, that's okay. So I'm just going to get rid of that little distraction on the right-hand side, leave the rest in for now. And then this one's also okay. I quite like that. Might just drop the exposure tiny amount also. So as I said, I will be using my Lightroom presets to demonstrate this. And I think before we do that, if we look at the final images, the one that we want to do some work with in Photoshop is this one here. Okay, so this one here, we need to extend the background. So it's with Tristan looking directly at the camera. And if we go here, it's this one here. So we're going to do some stuff in Photoshop to try and fix this issue here with the shoe and the background and all of that stuff. So we will right click, choose edit in Photoshop, edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. Okay, so what we need to do for this image in Photoshop is to essentially use AI to extract and move this background across, because we've got the clutter of the table here. We've got the bookshelf, which I'm including in one of the other shots. But for this one, I don't really want to. It's too similar. So it's a very simple process, actually, in the latest versions of Photoshop. You can just click on the marquee tool there, and you just need to come across, but you do need to include enough of that background for it to get an idea of what we need to do. I don't need to go too far down, because if you notice the floor, the light at the bottom is higher, brighter than at the top of the floor area. So I don't want it to start getting confused there. So that there should be okay. Now, generative fill, we need to give it a command. So I'm going to give it a couple of commands and hopefully see what happens. So I'm going to say to it, extend background from the right, right, preserve shoe. There we go. Let's see what it comes up with. Now, it's going to do the generative AI. And most cases, this is very, very good. Sometimes it gets it drastically wrong. Sometimes it gets it a little bit wrong, but it will give us 3 variations. So that's all right. That's not too bad. The shoe looks a little bit odd. That's much better. Much prefer that one. And that one, the shoe's off as well. So that one is pretty much good to go. We've got a little bit of darkening there on the left-hand side, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We're doing this to enable us to just drag that background across, and yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So I will leave that as it is. We don't need to regenerate it. We can, if we wish, to regenerate it again, but I'm all right with that. I'm happy with it. So I'll close that, say yes, and then that will take us back into Lightroom. Here we are. So we now have 2 of these images. Obviously, we've got the edit and we've got the original one. So I'm just going to remove that from Lightroom because I don't actually need to use it anymore. Just going to take it away. I've got my original edit there. Okay, so let's go and edit some of these images. Let's start with this particular one because I quite like this one. It's quite bright in the face, so we'll need to do a little bit of work with that. So as I said, I'm going to use my Film Edition 3 Lightroom presets. Mullins Film Edition 3 monochrome, and actually the one I chose for this is the Arizona film. I really like that. It's got this little kind of golden hue to it, and you see straight away that image is just beautiful. It applies my monochrome Arizona profile, and it doesn't do too much more to it. It punches up the clarity, but it does also increase the grain and brings down the post-crop vignette a little bit. So I really like that. So if we look at the grain, it's beautiful. It's very filmic. I just think that's a really nice look to it. However, if we don't want to have the grain, we can just use my utilities here to remove the grain completely, grain reset. Actually, I like it. So I'm going to do Control Z, Command Z to go back and reapply that. That's really nice. Now, there's a little bit of a hot spot on the face here. So I'm just going to use my AI utilities that you can see here, all kinds of AI utilities here. Subject Reduce Highlight Standard. Now, this will be too aggressive. So you see it's gone muddy, but it's done the job, a good job. But we have the slider here, so we can just bring it down. So we get it back to where we want. I like that. That's nice already. That's really very nice. So for the other edits, I would simply apply that preset to all of them, essentially. So I don't need to do that one. I will select all of them, but remove that one. I'm just going to come over to the Saved Presets options over here. Mullins Film Monochrome, Arizona Film. And as you can see straight away, that's worked really, really well. And if we look at this particular image here with the background, the book in the background, I love that. I love that look. I like that kind of idea of including a little bit of story of the room that Tristan's in. And then this edit here also is nice, but again, a little bit hot on that face. So I'm just going to work on that with the same process. Just bring them down a little bit. See what about there? Yeah, that's nice. Looks very, very nice. Very happy with that. If we look at that full screen, yeah, beautiful. Really, really nice. Love it. This one also, great. Love all this stuff. All shot in my studio just a couple of days ago, in fact. So here we can have a look at the one with the preset applied with the work we did in Photoshop. So remember, we extended the background, just kind of disappears off to the left-hand side, which is quite nice. And again, actually on there, I think just a little bit bright on the face. So we'll remove that. Just decrease that amount there. Lovely. I really like that.
So I'm going to show you another wedding now, just to bring it back full circle. This is Matilda and David. This is the last wedding that I ever shot, actually. It's a bit quick. The photo film's quick because they were that kind of couple. But this again, X-T5 18mm 1.4 56mm lens.
We got love that we'll never need to hide. Love will always rise above. Whatever comes, we will be just fine. If I am yours and you are mine. Take my hand and let's fly away to another galaxy. Hold me close, I want to feel your love. Together we are free. Just be with me. Just be with me. Just be with me. Now we're one with the sun over our heads, and at night we'll be the stars. We can go any place that we want to. I don't care if that's too far. Take my hand and let's fly away to another galaxy. Hold me close, I want to feel your love. Together we are free. Just be with me. Just be with me. Just be with me.
When it comes to any kind of photography, whether it's wedding photography or just photographing with kids at home, honestly, the observation stuff should be at the forefront. That really absolutely should be the thing that is going through your mind the most, rather than the technical perfections. And as I said earlier, one of the things that I often do, if the light is okay, then I will often allow the camera to take all the strain and shoot in fully automatic mode. Now, of course, you don't have to do that. You know, it's an easier way for me to work. I typically shoot with one eye open, camera to my eye, the other eye open, and just watching everything going around and looking for things like reflections, looking for all kinds of other things like that, you know, moments, interactions, concentrating on the light, the shadow, and then thinking about the moments and the compositions that go with it. Quick interjection for those that are wedding photographers. I have a course. There we go. 20% off. TPS 25 if you want to have a look at my course. It's about 7 hours. However, the heart of photography is really personal photography, isn't it? You know, and I kind of make a living also from shooting day in the life photography, family photography, and that's when the littler cameras come into their own, especially when you're shooting intimate shots of families together. This is X-T5 with the 18mm f1.4, the new 18mm lens that Fujifilm have. And again, remember, although I will have edited these images and shot them in RAW, I'm seeing almost all of this stuff in black and white. Even this picture here that was shot, I saw it in black and white in the viewfinder. I'm seeing this in black and white and then editing it later with my presets. Okay. And the family stuff ultimately is, you know, I feel so important these days, where we spend all of our times, you know, just taking pictures with our phones, and that's fine. We can obviously get some great pictures with that, and sometimes, you know, time and kind of portability is more important. But more and more, I'm now shooting just personal stuff constantly, cameras with me all the time, thinking about it, and still thinking about those little light, little composition, little moments. Black and white, happy people, documentary photography. That's pretty much it. So, any questions? Yes?
Not the for the class. You using any particular profile or we're processing?
Okay, so the question was specifically for the wedding pictures, was I using any profile or editing them afterwards? I edited the images with my library and presets. However, in camera, I used the Acros plus red profile, and I increased the sharpness by 2. So if I was shooting JPEGs, that would be pretty much good to go. That would probably increase the contrast a little bit. If I'm shooting my personal work, my street photography, that's what I shoot, JPEG with those settings, but they are actually edited in RAW. So for my clients, my wedding clients at least, and for my family clients, I give them everything in color and in black and white. So I have to shoot RAW. Yeah. So remember, if you are seeing in black and white in your cameras, always keep glancing up to the top of the viewfinder to make sure it says RAW, because otherwise you'll just have black and white pictures for the rest of your lives. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're not shooting automatic, do you shoot aperture or manual?
Okay, so the question is, when I'm not shooting automatic, am I shooting aperture or manual? And the answer is generally I'll go from automatic to manual. And the reason for that is because there's very few times when the automatic system won't do what I need it to do. I will use the auto ISO system in the camera, so I'll set the minimum shutter speed, depending on the lens, to a 1/125th of a second, and I'll allow the ISO to go up to 12,800, especially now with Lightroom and noise reduction. It's not really an issue. So that controls that. But when I need to, for example, in the dancing, if it's really, really dark and I need to take control, typically I'll bump straight to fully manual. But aperture priority, of course, is fine. In fact, the sports photography, the judo, the horses, that will all have been in aperture priority. Yeah, at the fastest aperture, just to give me the best look of it. Any other questions? Yep.
How are you doing lighting situations at weddings? Like in the party, if you're using a flash, if it is really dark,
Okay, so the question is, how do I deal with low light situations at weddings if I'm not using flash? Which is a great question. And the answer is I use a little Lumimuse LED light. It's a Manfrotto Lumimuse. It's about so big, very light. There's a 3 bulb, 6 bulb, and a 9 bulb variant. I have the 6 bulb variant. You can charge it once a year. That's it. It doesn't get hot. You just hold it in your hand. The way that I would do the camera in one hand, light in the other, and I can direct it. Keeping the camera in spot metering, and that really makes a pinpoint of that light. There's nothing wrong with flash. Don't get me wrong at all. I just never really learned to use it. That's the truth. So the little LED works better for the types of images that I want. Any other questions? All good? Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.